Here are the top stories for today, October 13, 2020. Lawmakers affirmed the election of Congressman Lord Alan Velasco as the new House Speaker. Malacanang cites the need for a new law to withhold the mandated 13th-month pay to workers due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Department of Education prepares to implement limited face-to-face classes. And the Department of Tourism vows to provide for the swab test of tourism workers in Boracay. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco is now the newly installed Speaker of the House after getting 186 votes from fellow lawmakers. More on this from Rom Dulfo.
Members of the House of Representatives on Tuesday formally ratified the election of Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco as the new Speaker. During a plenary session inside the Batasang Pambansa, 186 lawmakers affirmed Velasco's election, formally replacing Taguig Patero's Representative Alan Peter Cayetano. The ratification of the election was held to remove doubts about the validity of Velasco's assumption to the speakership post after he was named as the chamber's top leader during a remote session at the Celebrity Sports Plaza in Quezon City yesterday. In his acceptance speech, Velasco noted that the 1521 term sharing agreement that was brokered by President Duterte at the start of the 18th Congress last year was a bond of honor stronger than any written contract. President Duterte earlier called for a special session from October 13 to 16 to prevent a delay in the passage of the proposed 2021 national budget. In line with this, Velasco vowed to prioritize the proposed 2021 national budget. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Rom Dulfo.
Meanwhile, House Leader Alan Peter Cayetano in his Facebook Live tendered his irrevocable resignation and assured that he will continue to help, especially on the passage of the budget.
Right now, verbally, I am tendering my irrevocable resignation as the Speaker of the House of the Republic of the Philippines. So ang pakiusap ko sa mga kasama ko, 3 o'clock ang notice ng session. At 3 o'clock, elect your new speaker and pass the budget. Okay? Elect your new speaker and pass the budget. Sa mga staff ko na nakikinig, I'm sorry I was not able to talk to you personally. Medyo magbalot-balot na kayo dyan sa opisina para walang masabi sa atin. We will be okay. We will convert our staff and office to a charitable group and continue to help our people. Hindi tayo magiging balakid. Ang pagkaintindi ko, the President wanted me to finish the budget. Mali ang intindi ko, that's on me, that's not on the President. Let's continue to support him, but please, i-correct naman ng bagong majority. Huwag tayong pumayag na ang institusyon na mahal natin ay bababuyin. Diba? We can admit naman that that was a caucus. You can elect at 3 o'clock. Walang maneuvers, walang political tactics na mangyayari dyan. And I ask my supporters, no, kung mahal nyo ako, suportahan nyo po ang proseso ng budget.
The coverage of the election of Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco as Speaker does not reflect the stand of Presidential Communications Operations Office on the speakership row. According to PCOO Assistant Secretary Chris Ablan, the RTVM merely complied with the request of a lawmaker for live coverage of deliberations on the 2021 General Appropriations Act, which contains the 4.5 trillion peso national budget for 2021. Ablan said the request for live coverage came from Deputy Majority Leader Bernadette Herrera D, and that the PCOO and RTVM simply complied to the request for the coverage, with the promotion of factual information and transparency, especially on tax expenditures that concern all the Filipino taxpayers in mind. He said the RTVM decided to transfer to the Celebrity Sports Complex with the intention to cover budget deliberations. Outbound travel restrictions are still in place in the country. This is clarified by presidential spokesperson Harry Roque after IATF Vice Chair and Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles announced over the weekend that the IATF heeded the call of couples kept apart by the pandemic. Roque said outbound travel is still limited to essential travel only.
Itong outbound po continues to be discussed in the TWG. Wala pong agreement in principle. And that is why I would like to stress any information about IATF must originate from my office. We are still restricting the entry of tourists into the country. Yan naman po ay pinatutupad din ng halos lahat ng mga bansa sa buong daigdig.
Roque said the Department of Foreign Affairs does not issue separate fiancé visas like the United States. Fiancés will still have to resort to using regular tourist visas. He explained that foreigners will only be allowed to enter the country for a specific urgent purpose. Their entry will have to be endorsed by a line agency of government that has the jurisdiction over the purpose of the alien incoming to the Philippines. Only foreign nationals married to Filipinos are allowed to enter the country upon presentation of their marriage certificates, while only overseas workers, permanent residents, or holders of a student visa are allowed to go out of the country. A new law may be needed to allow the deferment of payouts of the 13-month pay due to COVID-19 pandemic. This after the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, earlier announced its plan to allow distressed micro, small, and medium enterprises to delay the mandated benefit to its workers.
The law has not been amended. That is the law. That is a mandatory provision of the Labor Code. Pabayaan po natin pag-aralan ng DOLE, pero sa akin tingin hanggang magkaroon ng bagong batas, baka hindi po yan na po pwedeng ma-defer.
Still to come, the Department of Education prepares to implement limited face-to-face classes. And coffee makers thrive in Negros Occidental even amid the pandemic. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP, at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. The Department of Education is preparing for the limited face-to-face classes in areas with no reported COVID-19 infections. DEPED also assures that while there are some errors in the self-learning modules distributed to the students early this month, parents not to worry because the 667 million modules being distributed nationwide have already been printed correctly. In response to numerous reports on errors found in various learning material, DEPED started its DEPED Error Watch to receive and collate errors spotted on the self-learning modules, other printed materials, DEPED TV, DEPED TV YouTube channel, and the DEPED Commons. The public are also encouraged to report any errors through these contact numbers. The Labor Department reminds employers that they have no reason to hire new workers if they have employees on floating status. Labor Undersecretary Benjo Benavides said the situation should be looked into to make sure that those who have been put on floating status and those that are being hired does not have the same job description. Under the law, companies need to rehire workers after 6 months since their firms have temporarily closed or implemented flexible work arrangements due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
So, kailangan talaga wala pong choice yung employer except to dismiss or to recall. Dalawa po yung nakapaloob po dun sa jurisprudence. Either you do away or you terminate the workers or you recall them. Kung hindi niyo po yun magagawa, ang jurisprudence sinasabi, o ikaw employees, pwede kang mag-file sa Department of Labor and Employment ng constructive dismissal.
Violence at the New Bilibid prison in Muntinlupa City has been contained, but tensions between warring prison gang members remained high following Friday's brawl that left at least 9 inmates dead. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara on Monday cited intelligence reports that one group was amassing to strike back at the rival group. Guevara, however, assured that prison authorities, with the assistance of the police, have so far contained the violence. Meanwhile, Justice Undersecretary Deo Marcos said it is too early to say whether there had been lapses on the part of any prison official who may be held liable for the incident. At least 7 members of the Sputnik gang and 2 from the Commando gang were killed in the clash inside the East Quadrant of the NBP's maximum security compound, which occurred from 2:30 a.m. to 4 a.m. on October 9. The national ID system to be made possible by the Philippine Identification System Act, or PHILSYS, will solve identity-related exclusions and inequality among Filipinos in need of government services. Department of Information and Communications Technology Undersecretary Dennis Villorente cited the need to create a functional ID system that is not dependent on paper-based and manual processes. Villorente said some of the poorest 40% of Filipinos have been unable to apply for government services or receive financial support because they lack the required identity documents. Filipinos who will register for PHILSYS will be provided with a personal serial number, or PSN, that they can use in identity authentication as their primary credentials. With a unique number and the PSN issued to citizens, Villorente said the Department of Social Welfare and Development can create unified beneficiary databases that can be used for delivering social services and other special programs. Despite difficulties brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, farmers and businesses are improving their operations to keep their products in the market and within reach of the public. Marita Mawahe has the story.
The Minoyan Murcia Marginal Coffee Growers, or M3CG, a group of coffee growers in Murcia Town, Negros Occidental, is working to go beyond manufacturing by expanding into an enterprise through value adding to increase revenue. The association works with clustered farming, which combine the members' harvest to achieve a higher coffee volume to trade. It also gave them access to institutional market and production linkages, technical and financial support, and production inputs from the government and private sector. The association hopes to acquire additional tools and equipment agency to establish a coffee processing and packaging center that is compliant with the Food and Drug Administration standards. In Zamboanga City, the Lubigan Cassava Farmers Association managed to sustain its livelihood and stay afloat amid the pandemic. The group, whose members are into the production of grated cassava or pangi, cultivates some 200 hectares of cassava in the coastal village of Lubigan. The association is one of several participants in the Agri-Trade Fair, or Cosechas de Zamboanga, which is part of the yearly Zamboanga Hermosa Festival. The activity will showcase the locally produced products of the different agricultural districts and fishery organizations in this city, helping them cushion the effects of the pandemic. Meanwhile, the provincial government of Pangasinan launched its Abig Pamanang Yaman Produktong Pangasinan project to promote the local products of the province amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The provincial government will buy products from local MSMEs, and these will be sold in the province. Aside from promoting businesses, this will also help in preserving the culture of the province. The first stop of the Pamanang Yaman Produktong Pangasinan truck was in Urdaneta City. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Muahe.
In our business news, the United States has extended a $213 million grant to the Philippines to finance the government's poverty reduction program. Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III and USAID Mission Director Lawrence Hardy II signed the grant for the Economic Growth and Democratic Governance with Equity Program, or EDGE. The EDGE program aims to reduce poverty, promote private sector-led growth, and strengthen good governance in order to promote inclusive growth for a more prosperous, self-reliant, and stable Philippines. It also supports sound urban management practices, anti-corruption institutions, reforms to improve transparency, and improving judicial efficiency, among others. Dominguez said the American aid underscores the strong and enduring bilateral ties between the U.S. and Philippine governments. The program will be implemented over a 5-year period until September 2025. Up next, Malacanang expresses sadness over the death of a detained activist baby. And the Department of Tourism vows to provide for the swab test of tourist workers in Boracay. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Malacanang is saddened by the death of 3-month-old baby River, daughter of jailed activist Reyna May Nasino, due to acute respiratory distress syndrome last Friday. Nasino was arrested after police found her and 2 other activists with firearms and explosives at the Bagong Alyansang Makabayan office in Tondo, Manila on November 2019. Baby River was born on the first week of July and was separated from her mother on August 13 upon orders of the Manila Regional Trial Court. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the motion to allow Nasino to stay with her child is within the jurisdiction of the court. He pointed out that the palace had no choice but to respect the court decision. Meanwhile, the Manila RTC Branch 47 granted on Tuesday Nasino's for furlough, allowing her to attend the wake and burial of her baby. The furlough will take effect from October 14 to 16, the day of Baby River's burial. The Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board in Bicol is set to review the wage increase order for workers that was approved early this year. Francia Ocmer, Board Secretary of RTWBP Bicol, clarified that although wage order number 20 was approved last March 6, it was not affirmed by the National Wages and Productivity Commission. Ocmer said the community quarantine contributed to the delay in the implementation of the wage order. She said the board would now have to review or approve another new wage order, but at this point it is hard to say if employers will be capable to give any wage increase. Had the wage order been implemented, private sector employees would have been receiving an increase of 25 pesos in their daily wage, supposed to be given in 2 tranches last April and July. At present, employees in the region are receiving a daily minimum wage of 310 pesos. The Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, is eyeing to pre-register more than 600,000 individuals in LEYTE province for the Philippine Identification System, or PHILSYS. low-income household heads as identified by the Department of Social Welfare and Development are targeted for Step 1 of the PHILSYS pre-registration process, which started yesterday. In Step 1, PSA enumerators go house to house to collect demographic information of the target registrants, such as name, date, and place of birth, address, among others. Step 2, which starts on November 25, is the capturing of the biometric data of the registrants. Step 3 is the issuance of the registrants of PHILSYS number and Philippine ID. LEYTE is among the 32 provinces prioritized for PHILSYS registration. The World Health Organization, or WHO, says COVID-19 vaccines will probably be available in December or early 2021. Chief Scientist Dr. Soumya Swaminathan said that the earliest date for a vaccine to come into the market to submit to regulators starting from December of 2020 into the early part of 2021. He reported about 40 vaccine candidates undergoing clinical trials, 10 of which are in phase 3 or late stage. Dr. Mariangela Simao, the WHO's head of access to medicines and health products, also said that the vaccine developed would be licensed in the country where the trial took place. They also need the manufacturing capacity to be available to be used at the country level. Earlier, WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus spoke out against the concept of reaching so-called herd immunity by letting the COVID-19 virus spread. In our 4 news, after several days under quarantine, U.S. President Donald Trump tested negative for the novel coronavirus. In a statement on Monday, White House physician Sean Conley announced that the president tested negative on consecutive days in his most recent COVID-19 test. The statement concluded that the president is not infectious to others. The development came as Trump is set to hold a campaign rally Monday evening in Florida. Trump confirmed on October 3 that he and First Lady Melania Trump had tested positive for the virus hours after one of his closest aides, Hope Hicks, who traveled with him as recently as last Wednesday, tested positive for COVID-19. He returned to the White House on October 5 after receiving 3 days of treatment at Walter Reed Medical Center in Maryland. The Department of Tourism, or DOT, will provide 8 million pesos for the swab testing of some 4,000 tourism workers in Boracay. In a statement, the DOT said Boracay is expecting more local tourist arrivals in the coming months. Boracay's workers will undergo RT-PCR testing to ensure that safety is the unparalleled priority as the island reopens domestic tourism. Tourism Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat said the DOT hopes to restore confidence among travelers and protect their health and well-being while giving tourism workers their livelihood back. The DOT, through the Tourism Promotions Board, has undertaken similar efforts to ensure safety in other tourism destinations like Baguio City, which reopened on October 1. As Lapu-Lapu City in Cebu reopens its doors for tourism, the city government promotes anew its tourism industry in a travel fair launched on Monday. The Balik Turismo Travel Fair is happening this October 17 from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the Hoops Dome in Barangay Gunob. The event aims at helping the tourism industry bounce back from losses due to COVID-19. The city's top hotels and resorts and other tourism-related establishments will offer discounts on room stays, food, and other leisure offerings. Mayor Junard Ahong Chan said the city's Balik Turismo program is geared towards helping the thousands of displaced workers back to the tourism industry. The mayor said the Balik Turismo task force was also created to ensure the safe transition of the city from general community quarantine to modified GCQ as it reopens tourism activities. And here's another look at today's biggest stories. Lawmakers affirmed the election of Congressman Lord Alan Velasco as the new House Speaker. Malacanang cites the need for a new law to withhold the mandated 13th-month pay to workers due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Department of Education prepares to implement limited face-to-face classes. And the Department of Tourism vows to provide for the swab test of tourism workers in Boracay. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Stay safe and God bless to all.